I want to say a special thank you to everyone for being here today. And for those of you that serve on our action teams, thank you so much. We believe strongly in the work that occurs in our CBAS accountability model. And quite frankly, even this morning, the commissioner was talking about our model in our LSAC meeting online as a model for the state. So just thank you to you for your time and energy and efforts making sure that we provide a world-class education for our kids. So today, I'm going to do just a brief introduction, just remind everybody again a little bit about our CBAS system, and then our cabinet members will come up as we go through our pillars. We do want to say a special thank you to Assured Partners for sponsoring our lunch. They've been a great partner for us. This is our 4th year now of our community-based accountability system, and we've said all along that this will not replace the state assessment. However, we're not defined solely by the state assessment anymore in our school district either. We measure a lot in our 6 pillars, and you're going to see a lot of that information today. Those of you that serve on our action team, I'd imagine everybody in here does, you really know a lot about your pillar, but you're going to hear a little bit more about other pillars today as well. Just a little bit of information about our district. We've got roughly 14,000 kids. We're still the 6th largest district in the state. This is just a few highlights of the year. We do have 3 of our Board of Education members with us today, and I want to recognize them. Jessica Jean, our chair, is with us today. Karen Collins, our vice chair, is with us today, and Aaron McConnell's with us today. So can we give them a round of applause for their leadership? And we're happy to report that we rank #1 in the region in pay, certified staff, classified. We're in the top 3 in everything, #1 in several areas. And we're 4th in Kentucky. We're very proud of that, and we've been able to do that because we do remain fiscally solvent, and we believe strongly in our people as they make everything go in our school district. We had a major breakthrough this year with our YSA program. We've done a 6-year MOU with Northern, and we're very happy about that. So we're excited about the future of that program, and I think we've grown the program immensely, and I think it's going to continue to grow. This is the 2nd year of our literacy HQR implementation, and our board has approved when we are purchasing our numeracy HQR, which next year will be our 1st year with everybody having that K-10. K through 5, for the new one, but we already have some math in middle school and high school. So we're very excited about that. So just a quick reminder of our 6 pillars. I'm not going to go through these, as you'll hear information about each one of them as the leaders of those pillars come up. Just a reminder though, signaling, we do signal, and green is maintain or satisfied, yellow is minor change, and red is major change. And I know everybody in the room is very familiar with that. So with that being said, once again, I just want to welcome you. Thank you for being here. And we're going to dig right in. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our safety and well-being chairpersons.
Thank you, Dr. Webb. And on behalf of all of the pillars, we'd like to thank you for your vision leadership to bring this model to the district, because it does challenge all of us to strive for world class every single day, which is what our students deserve. I also would like to thank, on behalf of all the pillars, our Board of Education who support this initiative, as well as your direct support, since you all participate in one of the pillars or multiple of the pillars. So thank you for that. My name is Matt Rigg. As our Chief Operations Officer, I have the opportunity to be co-chairperson on the safety and well-being pillar, and we'll hear from Leslie Smith here shortly, but as Assistant Superintendent, she is co-chair, and we work together to represent what we call kind of 2 sides of safety, which is the physical side and the mental, the social emotional side. All of these work together. And there's a lot that's going on in each of these pillars. And we have the functions that each of them are doing. And then many of you, if not all of you in this room, are helping contribute the data that goes into these dashboards, and that we're measuring what's going on in all of these areas. And all of it is designed to make sure that we have world class. But we're focusing on really 3 stakeholders. We have our students, we have our staff, and we have our community. In order to make all of these work together and to provide that world-class status that we look to achieve in everything, the common theme is safety. We all know that you have to, in order to be successful and to continuously pursue world-class, which is not by accident, it's every single day bringing intentionality to what it is that we're working towards, that we have to rely on the fact that we do have a safe environment so that we're willing and able to challenge ourselves. Because if we're worried about, am I even going to be safe, then how can you focus on the work? So an important element and an important fiber that is part of all of our pillars. We also always know that safety has been and always will be our top priority in this district. If we look at the key questions of this pillar, you'll notice that we have signaled all of them in green throughout the year. And if you recall what that means, it means that we're maintaining and we're satisfied with the results that we have. But as I'm sure every pillar that'll come up is going to talk about today, we're not just satisfied with the progress that we've made. And the fact that we're green doesn't mean that we rest on our laurels and stop there. We continuously challenge ourselves to want to get better. So yes, we celebrate the fact that we're satisfied with where we're at, but we continuously look to improve and to move forward. And when we do that in this area, I mentioned that we kind of have two sides of safety. The first two of our key questions are focused on the social and emotional side. The second two are more on the physical side. We want to take a look and understand a little bit more about the social emotional side. This has been something that's, for the last 3 years, has become more of an integral part of the safety pillar. Previously, we spent a lot of our time and energy on the physical side, and yes, we're satisfied with where that is. I'd like to introduce Assistant Superintendent Leslie Smith.
The first area that we want to highlight for the safety and well-being pillar is restorative practices. It's hard to believe, but the Kenton County School District is in its third year of implementation for restorative practices. When we think of restorative practices, it's a way to improve school culture and really provide responses to and strategies to inappropriate behaviors. Overall, we want to improve the school culture and improve student behaviors over time. We are happy to report that we have restorative practices coordinators at each of our schools. This is the second year of implementation for having the coordinators. Also, all of our coordinators, except I believe 2, have received extensive training through the Institute of Restorative Practices, which is great. You'll see some data on the, I guess, your right side, and we monitor our restorative practices data over time. And one piece of key data that I think that is important to highlight is when we look at last year's data in comparison to this year, we improved our restorative practices resolutions over 13%. And that's our goal, because hopefully every time we have a restorative practice conversation, we're repairing that harm. We're improving those behaviors over time. Next highlight I want to talk about, and when we think of office disciplinary referrals, we probably don't think highlight, but we do have some data that I want to share. One thing that's important to note is all of our high schools this year extensively revised their cell phone policies. So they, with their cell phone revisions, they eliminated having cell phones during instructional time. And because of this, the change resulted in a lot more referrals at our high schools. I think we ended up having about 1,500 additional referrals at our high schools. Now that data did level out over time, which is good. And also at each of our high schools, they also noticed that they had fewer referrals in other areas because of this cell phone policy. And they also had improvements in student engagement, which was great. But because of this, one kind of negative piece of data that we have up here is we did see a decrease or an increase in our behavior referrals district-wide. So it was just 14%, but when we eliminate the cell phone referrals, we actually see a decrease. Also with this data, a few pieces that I want to share is we had an 8% decrease in suspension data, which is awesome. We had 59% decrease in suspension events. So overall, this is data that we continue to monitor, and we contribute this data to our strong Tier 1 and our restorative practices. We never want to obviously have a crisis, but one of the things that we pride ourselves is that we are prepared that if we ever would have to, be involved in some type of crisis situation on our district. So 2 things that we do is we make sure our administrators, our SEB interventionists, and our counselors are trained. So 98% of our counselors are trained in Workshop 1 for Prepare, and we have 100% of our SEB interventionists and counselors trained in Workshop 2. So kudos to our teams, because this is a very extensive training that they have to do prior to school starting. So kudos to all of our team. The next piece of data that I want to talk about is behavior threat assessment and management systems. We continue to train and equip all schools to make sure stakeholders have an understanding of our threat assessment process and how ultimately we can support students. We monitor this data on a regular basis. We look at it weekly and we look at it monthly. This year, we did make a modification because in October, we saw an uptick in the number of threat assessment cases that we were seeing. So the SEB team put together some school safety lessons that we then shared systemically K-12. And because of that, we were able to see a dip in threat assessment cases. When we look at this data, we've had 233 cases this school year, which is an increase of 10 cases from last year, which, when we think of it compared to our 14,000 students, it's really minimal. So when we look at our pie graph over here, minimal threat assessment cases is at 1%. All the other cases are below 1%. Moderate is 0.3. High 0.6 and imminent 0.01. So when we really compare that data to the 14,000 kids that we have in Kenton County, ultimately it's a pretty low number. If a student, their threat assessment comes out moderate, high, or imminent, we do require those students to have a safety assessment before returning to school. And then obviously we take a team approach, we have a reentry meeting, and we provide support for that student when they're returning to school. So again, kudos to the SEB team and for all of our principals for really becoming more proficient around this process and making sure we're doing what's best for kids. Also, I want to talk a little bit about the SEB and mental health supports that we have in the district. We have strong supports for emotional and behavior needs. This year, over 800 students have received Tier 2 and Tier 3 SEB interventions this year. We've had over 600 students receiving counseling from a school-based therapist, and that's an outside therapist coming into our school, which is great. Also new this year, in the spring, we put together SEB transition meetings for all of our schools, and we had a process where we had a structured system where principals, counselors, and SEB interventionists could really talk about what supports need to be in place for students transitioning from 5th to 6th and students from 8th to 9th. We had lots of positive feedback from all of our stakeholders, and that's a meeting that will continue. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt Rigg, who's going to highlight some of our physical safety highlights and next steps.
Okay, just a few highlights on the safety side that many of you are familiar with because you've seen how they have played out this year. We've long had a secure vestibule, but we've added an additional layer to that because of the piggybacking threat, and we've seen a lot of positive strides with people understanding how to use that. Just a very brief story. We had an individual who's in the room with us today that was at a school and witnessed just last week a group of parents coming into the building, and the set of parents that are coming in actually turned to the parents behind them and told them that they couldn't come in, they need to wait and then press the button and introduce themselves. So we're seeing the fruits of the labor where now it's not us coaching, it's the parents and the community are coaching each other. So it's a positive sign to see that take place. Early in the year, everybody in the schools, including several members outside of this room, received a digital radio that connects directly to the dispatch center so that if we needed to respond to a crisis event, that we'd be able to do that very quickly by having direct access, which actually bypasses the 911 system and gets to the people who are going to make those calls to 911 for us and to send help. And also our CPR and AED simulations took place. Every school had a practice simulation this year in preparation for next year when we will have all of our schools doing 2 drills a year as part of their required drills. So I'd like to thank Paula and her team for implementing those trainings, which it also ties perfectly into the fact that we are number 2 in the state of Kentucky with the number of AED devices that we have at 123. Number 1 has 331, but they are much, much bigger than we are. So statistically, we're doing great to be where we are. So thank you, Paula, and your team. I'd like to thank Teal Nally as our district safety coordinator. He oversees our SRO program. And in order to achieve 100% status this year, he had to help us out a little bit. So he spent a little time here at Scott, but we're hopeful that we'll have some applicants and we'll have that position filled for next year. And lastly, from the Kentucky Center for School Safety, when they do their assessments, this year we had 16 of 17 of our schools pass on the first attempt. And it was a technicality that I debated on with Mr. Scroggins, but ultimately he said, here's how you can improve this. He gave us great advice, got the issue fixed right away. So we're looking forward to next year having 17 of 17 pass on the first attempt. So that number has continued to improve, and I thank everybody in this room for your commitment to that process. Some next steps that our pillar will be taking to make sure that we are continuing to challenge ourselves and to be world class. The one key theme that many of those in this room have heard in other meetings is that we have great systems in place already. So it's not that we're bringing something new, it's just getting better at what we have. So you'll see that common theme here as we look to monitor the implementation of our district's MTS, social and emotional behavior protocol. Those are already in place, but we'll continue to become more effective at those. We'll be looking at differentiating our support to specific schools that have a higher percentage of referrals, suspensions, or the threat and suicide assessments. Again, we have a great system in place. It's just making sure that we're using it to fidelity. Our physical safety systems, we're very satisfied with what we have, but we'll continue to look at options. How could we get better? Case in point, when we added the second set of locks this year, there's an example of getting better. And then finally, communication is always key to everything that we do. So looking to take the district safety committee and the individual school safety committees that are represented in this room and making sure that communication is flowing back and forth between those groups so that we're all hearing current information and that the district is aware of the challenges that schools are looking to resolve so that we can do our part to help at the district level. So it's very exciting, the direction that our pillar is heading, and we look forward to doing better even next year. So with that being said, and when I started, I'd mentioned we have 3 stakeholder groups. Students play a large part of that since we're about 14,000 of them. So we want to take a look at how they're doing, and I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Academic Officer, Shauna Harney.
Good afternoon. I want to start by thanking all of our stakeholders who served on this pillar, board members, principals, assistant principals, district staff, teachers, and students. It's an honor and a privilege to work alongside of you, and our district, and most importantly, our students very much benefit from our data-driven discussions. I would also like to thank just our school leadership teams, all of our teams, our principals, assistant principals, counselors, teachers, for this work every day that takes place in our buildings, in our classrooms. So thank you for your daily efforts. We know the magic, so to speak, happens in our classrooms because our teachers have the greatest influence over our students. And in order to make continuous growth and reach success with our 6 questions here, we really pride ourselves on continuously equipping, supporting, and investing in our staff. So you can see here that in this particular pillar, we have 6 questions. Many of these questions have been a part of this pillar since the inception of this process. You can see that we do have one question that we signaled yellow. This is our 2nd year that we've had this question, and Dr. Webb explained the signaling key at the beginning. Although there are not minor changes being made to this question, we believe there are major steps being taken in this area. And with only the 2nd year, that is the decision that the committee made around signaling that question yellow. Our data is not where we want it to be yet, but at this time we believe we are doing everything that we need to be doing to grow this area. We all know the importance of literacy at the early level and the impact that will make across the journey for a student as they transition from elementary to middle high. Obviously, we pride ourselves on being data rich. We have a lot of data you're going to see this afternoon. However, we also are getting better and really pride ourselves on constantly putting this data in context so that we know how to use it and we really understand fully what it means. So I'd like to just point out a couple points of pride on this slide. As Dr. Webb mentioned, we don't define ourselves by the state assessment scores. Obviously, we do heavily look at those, and we recognize that that's a culmination of the daily efforts and the growth in our school district. All 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high, performed at the high level according to the state assessment process. The percentage of our students scoring proficient and distinguished is at or above the state in all content areas and at all levels, with the exception of one. And that area, if you're familiar with it, is an area that's a statewide issue that is generating a lot of conversations, and that's high school science. Our district outperformed the state in the ACT in all areas. Our four-year graduation rate is up 2.3% at 97.9. And our post-secondary readiness within the past 2 years increased 15 percentage points. As the sixth largest district in the state, we were proud this year when we received information back that we do not have any schools performing at a TSI classification. So that is, those subgroups performing at or below the bottom 5% of all schools. So we were very proud to not have that classification at all in our school district. So although we signaled that literacy question is yellow, and we know that we are pretty early into that journey of making some significant changes in how we teach reading at the elementary level, we would be remiss if we didn't point out that although we are not satisfied with where we are yet, we continue to be recognized from our state department and our state level around our work. This slide just features several Kentucky Department of Education publications where teachers and several members of our instructional team and staff were interviewed and focused. We had about 5 or 6 different school districts visit our district this year, wanting to see classroom instruction at the elementary level, wanting to talk to teachers and principals. So we're very proud that that work is recognized. We're in the second year of implementing our HQIR K-12 literacy and grades 6 through Algebra 1 and numeracy, and we're excited and thankful for the board's approval of our HQIR in numeracy at the elementary level. So we will, starting the 25-6 school year, have an HQIR in the hands of all teachers teaching numeracy and literacy at this point. So this data just shows the fidelity percentages in our team. Obviously, how does the use of the resource impact student achievement in a measurable way over time is one of our essential questions. And these slides are just showing that our teachers are continuing to grow with understanding this new resource that they now have in their hands. It takes time to get to know that resource, and our fidelity percentages are really showing that our teachers are growing with using that resource to teach standards and teach our students. This year, a huge emphasis of our professional learning was investing time and money in our teachers really having that resource, looking at our standards, internalizing those documents and those resources, and knowing how to most effectively plan, collaborate with colleagues now that there's a common resource, and really look at the data that we have internally to prepare better instruction and ultimately deliver better instruction for our students. So as we said at the beginning, we know the value of, if we're about all kids, we have to be about all staff. And every year we hold ourselves responsible for providing top-notch quality professional learning for our staff. This slide gives an overview of a new professional learning session that we're rolling out this summer. Everything has to have a cute name in education, of course, so we have titled this Team Kitten Elevated. And what's so special about this event is that we have hundreds of teachers who are teaching for other teachers. They are standing up and delivering professional learning for our teachers, by our teachers, and it's incredible to see these sessions grow and the numbers of our teachers being tapped who are very capable of leading this professional learning in our district. So we're very proud of this. And our next slide just captures some numbers and some data around professional learning. You can see just some data around the number of teachers that were impacted professional learning-wise heading into this school year and during this school year. Obviously, our board has approved a $1,000 stipend for those teachers who are participating in the statewide literacy professional learning. Our state just opened a 4th cohort, so we anticipate those numbers growing too. So we're just very proud of the time and the commitment that our staff takes on putting on quality professional learning, and also for our teachers who are participating, and now not just participating, but leading that professional learning as well. So obviously standards is a huge part of what teachers are responsible for teaching. We really have noticed a lot of growth around the integrity of this process with our district common assessments, and also percentages of students hitting that proficiency mark. So obviously this is data that we could have a lot longer of a conversation around in terms of putting it in context and understanding what it might mean. But we know that without some of these systems and structures, that data that we shared earlier on the slide, the points of prides. All of these systems and structures, we believe, lead to helping our students reach their maximum learning potential, which leads to some of that data we shared at the very beginning of the presentation. So our English learner population, we know that that is a growing population. And if you look on this slide here, you can see this is around our access test. And at the time that we took this test in January, there were 627 students tested. And right now, since January, we already have about 700 students. This data continues to show that we are growing those students in terms of their understanding of English, which is pretty important to have under your belt before you can really begin to understand standards. So this data, we don't have the state data back to put in context yet, but every year that we do have that, we'll get it back this summer. We are significantly above that state percentage in terms of the numbers of students exiting and also that percentage of students showing growth. So currently we have about 700 students and about 200 students in our newcomer program. So we were very excited. This is one of those data sets you get back before the year ends, but we don't have the context until the fall. So we do take several tests, diagnostic tests, and this data shows some information about how our students are performing with MAP. What this data doesn't show on the slide, but I can share with you, we got it after we put this presentation together. This shows the projected proficiency for each grade in reading and math. And so the projected proficiency is based on students hitting the 60th percentile. And since putting this together, we received our premium reports back from NWEA, and we are very proud to share that all grades in reading and math are significantly above that state projected proficiency, and there's 92 districts in the state who took this test during the same time that we did with those instructional weeks. So we're very proud of that. We have 14 schools that hit high achievement and high growth in reading. All 17 of our schools hit high achievement in reading, and 15 of our schools had high achievement in math. So as far as some next steps, we pride ourselves on taking complex areas and trying to simplify them. Narrow and focus has been our tagline for the past couple years, remaining focused just on our instructional priorities. And that is making sure that we are equipping people to have rigorous instruction at all tiers, tier 1, 2, and 3, and that we have quality professional learning communities where our teachers and our staff are collaborating around standards and the resources and the data that we get internally. It's been very refreshing now to have the data from our internal common assessments, the conversations taking place around the HQIR. Teachers are now able to intentionally make adjustments with that data, with that resource, knowing I'm going to teach it this way this time, or, this is a change I need to make. So actually those professional learning started today. We have professional learning for the 25-26 school year that kicked off today. And really we pride ourselves on holding true. This is kind of our North Star, this visual. We have a common instructional vision. We want to equip our folks with strong curriculum, strong resources, strong professional learning, leads to high quality instruction, and ultimately that leads to good experiences and good outcomes for our students. So with that, I will turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Mary Beth Huss, and she's going to talk to us about the student readiness pillar.
Thank you, Mrs. Harney. So it's an honor to be here today and represent the student readiness pillar. And our Student Readiness Action Team is composed of approximately 20 members, so thank you to everyone who is serving on that pillar. We have community partnerships with the Workforce Investment Bureau, with NKU. We have student representation. We have a board member, and we have lots of staff represented as well on the Student Readiness pillar. And like other pillars, we've met 3 times throughout the year to signal. So we have 3 questions that we signaled throughout the course of the year, and that's: to what degree are students transition ready exiting high school, exiting middle school, and exiting elementary school? And as you can see, the signaling throughout the year for our students exiting high school and middle school was green, and yellow for our students exiting elementary school. So you can see at the bottom of the screen, our students in the cohort 2025, our seniors, are at 97.12%. That's a 2.42% increase over last year's cohort. So we're pretty excited about that as we continue to grow our seniors exiting each year transition ready. And so throughout the year, we're taking various steps in our action plan and capturing data and to track and see how we're growing and evolving throughout the year. And so I'll highlight each one of those areas, starting with our cohort 2025. And so when we look at that cohort, the first thing that I'd like to point out is our ACT data. And you can see the trajectory on the screen in the top chart of the juniors when they were in last year, 2024. And then you can see the state data there in the middle. And then all the way on the right, there's senior super score. And the senior super score is the highest score for each student that we take. And so you can see that a 19.1 composite is the senior super score. And you'll notice that whether our students in their junior year or during their senior year, we are always above the state with our ACT data. So you can just kind of see the trajectory there of how they grew. And then you can see in the bottom right section of the screen, the ACT top percentages by content area for that cohort 2025. And you can see the top 10% of students had a composite score of 29.2. And then you'll notice the top 20% composite was a 26.9, and the top 50% of that cohort had a composite score of 23.3, which is all very outstanding. Also, we work very hard with a process that we utilize to monitor the graduation rate. And we've done this now for several years, and we've seen some big improvements with our graduation rate as we monitor this data over time. We collect it monthly. And so our true graduation rate is projected to be at 99.36 this year. And so our schools are doing an outstanding job with really keeping track of students, being on track to graduate. And so we're excited for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week to get those seniors across the stage. Some of the other processes and systems and structures that we have in place that really do align to the student learning and progress pillar, which you just heard Mrs. Harney speak about, and supporting the Tier 1 instruction overall. We have student-led conferences that take place with adult advocates throughout the course of the school year, and 3 of those conferences take place focus on student readiness with our students. We also have systems and structures in place, as I mentioned, to monitor graduation rate, ACT data. Also, in addition to that, Coyote data, AP and advanced coursework, dual credit coursework, MTSS, the civics test data as well. So we have a lot of different data monitoring that we do, but again, there's behind the scenes work in that data collection and then working with our kids and drilling down and naming and claiming our students to make sure that we're supporting them the best that we can so that we can walk them across that stage and they can be transition ready. All of our schools have internal dashboards that they work with, and we continually are working with those dashboards it's an evolving process to refine those as well. Dr. Webb highlighted earlier the Young Scholars Program that's held at NKU. This is the 5th year for YSA as a regional program. And as Dr. Webb referenced, some of the work that we did is a 6-year MOU. And also starting in 2025, 26, we will have tuition that is going to be covered for our students attending the YSA program. So that's very exciting. And you can see some of the successful data for those YSA students. Approximately 79% earn all A's and B's in those dual credit courses, and they're taking all dual credit courses. We have a strong retention rate for that program, and they have a strong GPA as well. This year in the world of CTE, we held our 3rd annual work-based learning fair. We had over 45 business partners who attended and met and dialogued with our students. We had over 900 juniors and seniors participate in that work-based learning fair. Also, this was our first year with a partnership with the Ensweiler Institute, so we were very excited about that. We had 31 students participate in that program, learning the trades of carpentry, plumbing, welding, HVAC, masonry, and then leading to industry certification opportunities for them. We have 32 students that are planning to attend in the 25-26 school year. Our middle schoolers, and highlighting them, we ended with 61.82% of our 8th graders transition ready. And again, we did have our high schoolers go out and mentor our 8th grade students in supporting transition readiness. High school students who mentored 8th graders went out and met 5 different times with the 8th grade students. We had approximately 246 8th graders who were mentored by 33 high school students. We're also excited for this upcoming 25-26 school year as our board approved a partnership with Trades NKY to have a club for each of the 4 middle schools for our middle school students to join the Construction Trades Club. The Trades NKY will be providing all of the materials and resources, and they'll be meeting monthly as a club to have our students be able to explore the trades and see if that is a pathway that they would like to enter into when they're in high school. And so our middle school students did show growth in all of our transition-ready components and areas, and we had about approximately a 5% increase as compared to last year. And then with our students exiting elementary, we ended the year at 62.51% transition ready. And so this pillar really does directly tie and relate to our student learning and progress because there is a lot of literacy components built into elementary transition readiness because we know the importance of our students at those foundational grades, leaving and exiting, being on grade level readers. So we are capturing data that have indicators that show whether students are demonstrating skills through our MAP growth assessment with their fall or their spring data or their Kentucky summative assessment reading data as well. And then we're also looking to ensure that they're passing both math and reading. So we want to continue to work with our students in elementary, especially with goal setting, making sure they have a clear understanding of GPA because they're just starting in the 4th grade to get a GPA. And so we want them to understand the impact of their grades and how that impacts their transition readiness. We also had our 8th graders mentor our 5th graders, and so we had 61 8th graders go to elementary schools and mentor approximately 354 5th graders on transition readiness, so they would have a better understanding of those components of how to become transition ready. And so with the mentoring program, you can see I just pulled out 3 different quotes from when we met the last time as a Superintendent Student Advisory Council, and so that you can see the kids, they love being the mentors to the younger students and partnering with them and really helping and supporting them with transition readiness. Some overall highlights, you'll see in the middle the number of pathways that we have at each school. You'll see in the upper right-hand corner students that we have hired as paid employees and paid internships and which areas they're in. You can see we had 38 students qualify for Governor's Scholars, 58 students participate in JROTC. At the top middle of the screen, you can see we had 981 students in dual credit classes, and that was 4,621 classes, and they earned over 13,863 dual credit hours. We had 627 students in AP classes, 247 earn industry certifications, and at the top left, 68 students earned an associate's degree and $29 million in scholarships for the cohort 2025. So areas we'd like to continue to improve upon is just continuing with effective and recursive structures, making sure that we're impacting and supporting as well all the work that's tied together. As Mr. Rigg mentioned, all of our pillars really do tie together, but ours especially with the student learning and progress pillar. Implementations of systems that we have in place to collect regularly data and reviewing that data through dashboards and making sure we're making an impact with Tier 1 instruction. An emphasis on our grade analysis that takes place at the end of each term, but also reviewing grading policies and making sure there's calibration there. Continuing to stress the importance of transition ready in our schools, building that culture, and celebrating our students regularly for meeting milestones with transition readiness. Looking at root causes, especially in elementary and middle school, to try to drill down, name and claim our students, and try to make sure we're making an impact with those students and getting them to become transition ready. Ongoing meetings throughout the school year as needed with schools to help support them with transition ready, expanding our mentoring program within school buildings, and some of our schools have been able to do that this year, so we're hoping we can get all of our schools expanding mentoring within their own buildings, and growing our career readiness overall, especially with our trades clubs in the middle schools, as I mentioned, but then also looking at our CTE EOP data and looking to ensure that we have training and that we have high quality instruction taking place, regularly formatively assessing those students as well along the way. Thank you very much for your time and dedication and support with the Student Readiness Pillar. And at this time, I'm going to turn things over to Assistant Superintendents Tina Wortman and Shannon Gross.
We all know that we need our students to be engaged and feel a part of the school community, as well as that ongoing two-way communication between school and home. We have 3 key questions that we use data and evidence to signal this year. You can read those 3 questions. So we signaled them in November, February, and May. And with that data and evidence, we were able to signal green for all 3 questions each time. That first question is focused on opportunities and activities that are offered throughout the school year. And this year in grades K through 5, we had 312 extracurricular or co-curricular activities that were offered at the elementary grades. 102 activities or offerings at the middle school. High school, 156 opportunities, a total of 570 opportunities for our district. And if you look there in the middle, that's an increase of 86 opportunities from the 23-24 school year. One of our biggest jumps this year was that we had more of our elementary schools offering club days. For participation, this is the amount of students that participated in those clubs and opportunities. At the elementary, we had 5,760 students that participated in a club or activity. In the middle school, 2,602 students. At the high school, 2,859 students. Overall, we had a total of 11,221 students that were actively engaged in a co-curricular or club activity. And that was an increase, if you look in the middle, from 393 students participating this year from last year. This year, we did have 65 more clubs that were added at the elementary level, and a total of 86 clubs if you put elementary, middle, and high school together. We also had a big growth in our elementary basketball league this year. We added about an additional 30 students. And at the high school level, Scott did add a boys volleyball program, and then Dixie has a girls and boys lacrosse KHSAA sanctioned sponsored. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to my co-chairperson, Dr. Gross.
So I'm excited to share with you our data around family and community engagement. Over the course of the year, all 17 of our schools, 3 different times throughout the year, self-assess themselves on the relationship building and communication on the family, friendly, and school partnership assessment. And you can see our data there. Grades K through 5, our schools averaged 84%. Grades 6 through 8 was at 70%. High schools 9 through 12 scored themselves at 68. And this for the school year showed an increase of 5% overall for the district. Some other highlights: in the course of the year, our schools have increased the collaboration between school and community partnerships. We are always looking to get our outside community members in our school to help support. KCSD has a total of 206 non-duplicated different partnerships for grades K through 5. 496. Keep in mind, some of these are duplicated. Grade 6 through 8 was 157. The high schools was 182. And from last year to this year, this was an increase of 103 partnerships. One of our district goals is district attendance at 96.25. You can see our average month attendance for the past 2 years. We have 23, 24, and we also have 24, 25. To put this into context, year to date, where we are today, we've completed month 8 attendance at 95.05, and this is up 0.48% where we were last year. Chronic absenteeism rate, our average up through month 8, we were roughly about 12.5%. Overall, from a state standpoint, the state averages anywhere between 25% to 30%. Chronic absenteeism is defined as a student missing 10 or more percent of the time since the time that they've been enrolled. So our district, our schools do a beautiful job of getting our kids, communicating to our families about the importance of getting our kids in school. But we also continue to be above the state average in attendance and significantly outperform the state in chronic absenteeism. And we understand as a district that students need to be present to learn. I promise you this is not all encompassing, but it does allow you to see some of the highlights that our kids achieved over the course of the school year. We had athletic achievements, Scott girls volleyball team, KHSAA student advisory panel. We had an STLP ambassador, Northern Kentucky Chamber Youth Leadership class, and we also had 11 students that were accepted in the Governor Scholars for the Arts, and 4 were selected into the Governor Scholars for Entrepreneurs. So once again, this is not even close to be all-encompassing, but it does highlight our students and the work that they put in along with our schools. We've identified to continue expanding district-sponsored activities at all grade levels. We know that if our kids are involved, they want to be at school, and with that, with them being in school, they have a better chance of learning and being successful. Schools will review the list of partnerships for the district, collaborate on the connection with the established partnerships, develop and implement a system to track and monitor parent involvement at all schools, develop and implement a system to track and monitor spending for parent involvement at all Title I elementary schools, implement a reading plan for all elementary students that need a tiered reading intervention. This plan involves a consistent two-way communication between the school and home, and continue to focus on attendance. Currently, our data for month 8 is at 95.05, which is 1.2% below the district goal of 96.25. And we will continue to review and strengthen our systems and structures to support schools, kids, families, and to get kids in school. And next, I'd like to introduce Ms. Owens with the world-class staff.
I'd like to first off thank everybody who's a part of this pillar. We like to think that in our pillar, we are where all of the adults come together to impact the students, because we are here for student achievement, but we know what the data shows. And if we support and promote high-quality staff, that in turn leads to high quality student performance. So this is where all of this data comes together for us. We look at 3 main things. The first of those is retention, then recruitment, and then the final piece, actually we've already spread out among several of our pillars today, mostly with Ms. Harney, as she was talking about the supports that we give to the staff on hand and what we do to train staff, continue to promote their learning so that they can be better impacting student achievement in the classroom. But that goes beyond just those teachers in the classroom and the administrators that we have here in this room. That also involves the trainings and the supports that we give for any staff, whether it be in student nutrition, transportation, building operations, all of those different areas. So we monitor a lot of data across all positions across the district. We'll start in our first with retention. I have said every year, I'm amazed by this number. I don't think we can possibly make it any better. And as I've said that and I've spoken it into existence, we continue to rise and we continue to top that number every year. So I'm going to say it again this year. This is the highest retention rate we've ever had. I want to see if we can beat that again next year. But right now, from the beginning of this school year till May 1st is when this data was pulled, we have retained a monthly average of 99.36% of our staff. We have a pretty steady retirement rate in the district. It'll kind of come up and down just a little bit, but this is not including our retirees. This is also not including anyone who's accepted a promotion, because we get people all the time, whether it be someone in student nutrition that came on to see if they liked the role. I'm going to try it out for 4 hours, but you know what? I really like it. And I'm going to take this new position in student nutrition that offers 7 hours. So that might be a promotion. Or as we all know, we have people who are instructional assistants in our district that are working on their teacher certification and they become teachers. So we take those numbers out just a little bit if you're wondering why we have more postings than what that percentage represents. One of the things that we do with retention and the data that we give out, because it doesn't just happen in human resources, right? All of what's happening to retain teachers is happening at the school level and in the individual departments and what they're doing. So we give regular surveys to new employees across the district 3 times a year. And then we also make sure all of our existing employees are surveyed on a regular annual basis. So we know the state does the impact survey. We in the district said, you know what, that's only every other year. We need to know more regularly what's happening with all of our staff and how we can make sure our staff are staying with us. We want high quality staff to stay high quality staff here. So what we do is we do a stay survey in those off years that we don't have the impact survey. It's not the exact same survey, it's very similar in nature. So I've kind of got a summary of overall. There's certainly a lot more questions than that. But if you'll look over to it'd be your right-hand side of the screen, it's one of the questions is about the overall satisfaction in the district. What's your overall satisfaction with your profession, with your location, with the district as a whole, or just the education profession as a whole? And we were so pleased to see that we increased by large percentages in every single area, our largest being 12% increase in everyone's satisfaction for working in the Kenton County School District. And I do want to point out that while the 4% satisfaction at their location was the smallest increase, it was already a really high percentage, close to 90%, right around that 90% mark at the location. So we were very pleased to see that growth in that. We've also expanded, since the last time I was here, we've expanded that option 9. So when I talked just a few seconds ago about instructional assistants becoming teachers, that option 9 program is the one that allows them to continue working as instructional assistants, hone their skills there, being in a school, and then progressing on almost as on a career ladder. We have that partnership with NKU. It started off for just elementary teachers, and that's now expanded to not only be special education, but also they've added on IECE, which is our preschool program. So it's our hope that we continue to build this program. We have a handful of instructional assistants every year that are continuing in that career ladder for us, and we're excited to have them as a part. We'll move ahead and talk a little bit about what we're doing across the district with recruitment of teachers. And that's actually going to lead really nicely into our next steps for teachers. So we've continued our walk-in Wednesdays. By the way, if you haven't already sent out a plug to people that you know, we're a great place to work. We're starting those again the first Wednesday in June, so make sure you tell your people. We've continued our teacher job fair with 82 applicants in attendance that day. And the employee referral program has grown extensively. That was something that 2 years ago, board gave approval on that. And last year was the full year of completion on that to see who we had. We had 8 last year, and we were happy with 8 because that's 8 new employees that we have. This year, We grew it to 38. So people are starting to see, wow, you know, I do like this. This worked for me. I was referred by someone. And we're noticing that there's a chain of the people who are referring were referred themselves. So we want to continue that chain as we go. We also are expanding in our future educator internships. Actually, just this morning, last Friday was the deadline to get those internship applications in, and I wanted to kind of steal some time from you sometime this week because the applications that we got, we tripled the number of applications that we had from last year, and I think that's a large part of our YSA program. We discovered this year that we have students who are getting college credit right now and are in our YSA program. They're getting college credit in teacher jobs, future teacher jobs. Some of those are to be teachers. Some are future, I think we had school psychologists that people were wanting to become. So this is an opportunity to get as many kids as we can in, see what it's like, and use them in internships throughout our district. That goes right into our next steps. So we have kind of become part of this pathway, but we started it backwards. We started really concentrating our efforts in our world-class staff in the college student partnerships. And we've really built that. I mean, we are to the point now that all of our principals in the room today get a lot of contact from our university partnerships going, hey, I had a great experience with a student teacher in this person's classroom, can we get them again? And so we've done a really good job developing that part of the pathway. We've also created these paid internships. One of the things we want to do to kind of expand that internship, we're working with Northern right now. They're trying to see if they can get credit for that practicum course. You guys remember doing your practicums. Right now, we've got our interns in classes 3 hours a day, every day of the week as interns. But they're not necessarily getting practicum credit for that. So we're in talks with Northern about how we can count that as practicum credit so that they get into our schools as teachers as soon as possible. Another way that we are expanding that is our Educators Rising. If you guys, I'm going to date myself here. How many people remember Future Educators clubs? A few of us were around for that. Those Future Educator clubs have now turned into Educators Rising, and they've expanded it high school and middle school. So that's one of the things we want to start exploring next year, both with that grades 9 through 10 and 6 through 8 are different types of clubs and different types of opportunities for shadowing experiences within our classrooms, career classes, and different types of dual credit classes that we could get even earlier than before they were to go off to YSA to get those extra college credit hours. Again, keeping in mind that this is the opportunity to let them see what's really happening behind the scenes in a classroom, because you and I both know what you thought teaching was about whenever you were a student was a little bit different than when you walked into a classroom the first time. So we want them to have that experience and know, you know what, this is pretty exciting. I want to do this for my career too. One of the things that we continue to monitor are all the great things that our staff does. So we have, much like on the students that they had talked about before, we have a lot of awards that our staff get as well. We have administrators in this room, looking at Ms. Harney over here. They got a pretty nice award this year and got recognized for. We have a lot of teachers. We have people within our classified staff, and we continue to promote all the good things that they do. And you can always visit those on our website because we try to keep those up to date as they happen in live real time. That is the conclusion of world-class staff, and I think I'm going to hand things over now to Susan Bentel.
I'm co-leader of this pillar with Brian Vanover, so you'll hear mostly from him. We have basically 5 areas of the operations